gut-wrenching loss, depending on how you want to look at it, whether it be because we were close, no cigar. The officiating was very up and down, to put it lightly, but we're going to dive into a little bit of everything again. As you come in here, drop your thoughts. Let me know what you thought on the game. I'm going to pull up some of the numbers here, the box score numbers, and see what we can get a feel for. But man, the missed opportunities. I think that's going to be the biggest painstaking part of this. Thinking back is just the missed opportunities, the missed touchdown, the chance that we had there in the goal line. Well, basically within the 5-yard line, 6-yard line, starting the drive there, unable to get any points out of that, unable to score a touchdown. And just what was, again, it just seems like to me the play calling when it is going from the 50 to the 50, it's okay. And then as we inch towards that red zone, inch towards the goal line, it's like the play calling just tightens up to the point where it's just way too predictable. Or my take on it is almost this, that I feel to an extent that they're afraid to make a mistake in the red zone in terms of play calling. Otherwise, I don't understand why it's conservative on the 6-yard line and we just run. And I understand that we want to run, but let's get a little bit something going, maybe some kind of outside run, something like that besides, running with a smaller player to the outside. I just want to get big physical and just start to kind of do some outside zones or do some whams, some traps, do something to kind of mix the blocking up and take advantage of some of those situations. Maybe pull some guys, get some combo blocks going up to the second level and try to just push our way through there. But instead, it seems like we're just trying to jump over our offensive line every single short yardage situation too. And not a huge fan of the jumping, especially in that situation where once you leave the ground, if you don't get where you need to go, forward progress is stopped. You can't push anymore. You lose all of your leverage and your ability to push. So you have one shot at making it over the line. If somebody meets you there, it's done. That's one of the reasons I don't like the constant jumping. It might be something that Dowdell has been told to do, but it's just every single time we're trying to jump over the line, every single time. So let me pull up some of the stats here real quick, and we'll dive into some of the numbers. And like I said, as you are piling in here, let me know your thoughts. I'm going to be popping up some of the comments here as well and getting into y'all's thoughts. Wade says, why didn't the Ohio State coach get 15 yards for throwing the headset when Rule got one a couple weeks ago? It absolutely should have been called and was not, which is a trend today. It was a disappointing trend today on. It's just the officiating was bad. The officiating was horrible. And if you would have come into this game and told us that, like, yeah, the officiating is probably going to be horrid, then on our side, then we would have never thought we had a chance to win. That was the biggest thing for me. I'm like, we're sitting here and we're talking about how we have missed opportunities and the officials are really not calling a straight down the middle game. And we still had a lead at one point. And just like I said, just kind of like the fight that this team showed, the defense especially, when I posted a couple of videos about the offense, this week or talking about Satterfield, I even got comments is like, why are you focused on the offense? Like, why aren't you talking about the defense? The defense also gave up 57 points and all this other stuff. But I wasn't worried about the defense. Last week seemed like an outlier. Again, a lot of heads went down. A lot of people got disappointed. But we've seen that happen. The Illinois game where we really got kind of beat, got put out of position. Our defense got put in a tough situation in a lot of ways, and they responded, right? And so I've seen the defense respond. I just have yet to see the offense respond. And today, it was more of the defensive response that gave the offense a chance and gave the offense a leg up versus the offense. The offensive play calling is still an issue. Credit to the players. They battled their tail off, but just some of these play calling things by Satterfield. There was one screenplay that I'll get into it a little bit where he almost threw him into the tackle. That was when they're in the red zone, and we kind of stretched it out wide, and he threw him right into the tackle. I mean, right when the defender was reaching his arm out, he caught the ball, threw it right out to him. So opportunities were there, but happy they hung in the game. Exactly. Like, again, it hurts just because of how close we were, but this has to give a lot of confidence because what this defense did well today, when I was watching the Iowa film, and I kind of broke this down when I was going into, what to expect from Ohio State's offense. And, Ohio State runs to the left a lot, right? But they pass to the right a lot. So they do things to move the defense, right? They run a lot of trips, they run a lot of bunch, and they'll motion across. They use a ton of motions. And what they're trying to do is just manipulate the box, but they're trying to get people moving away from the play. They're motioning out and they'll snap. Maybe he'll run a wheel route, but they're trying to motion people away from the play to get an inside zone. Sorry about that. I don't know why my camera. I also don't know who these guys are on this. It's sort of random picture pops up every single time my camera dies. So I don't even know how to change it. I don't even have one of me on here. So I don't know who that guy is on that picture, by the way. Just a heads up. He doesn't look like me. So, but yeah. So, anyways, what they did a good job of the defense today was eye discipline. And that was what killed them against Illinois. And that's what killed them against Indiana's eye discipline. And what Iowa did was Iowa had mixed things up with their fronts and their coverages in the first half. And they had a lot of success doing that defensively against Ohio State. And so for Nebraska, it was literally going to have to be, everything was going to have to be disguised, whether we're rotating a coverage to man, whether we're rotating coverage to zone, whether we're dropping players back in coverage, where we're sending players up. They're playing and keying off of what our linebackers do. And then our linebackers are keying off of what their blockers and everything else is doing. And it's a matter of who's gonna make the right decision. And Nebraska was in the right place most of the time today on defense. A couple of times they got beat. Jeremiah Smith got deep on that one, and then there was that one touchdown. I think the first touchdown. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but if y'all remember the play against Indiana where they had kind of that up and in route, deep route where it was the sack. It got saved by the sack, but that route was wide open early on in that game for a touchdown. That was the same exact route, if I'm not mistaken, that Ohio State ran in that same play up the hash, right up the seam. And it's susceptible. The pass game's susceptible up those seams. And so, those little things have to be fine-tuned. But, you get a couple of explosive plays that lead to a touchdown. One of them was kept alive on that drive where, you had the pass interference on 3rd and long. That first touchdown doesn't happen if they don't call that bogus pass interference on that first Ohio State touchdown drive to keep the drive going and to give them an opportunity to score. So, but yeah, let me continue to dive into your comments real quick. Let's see. And if y'all don't mind, if you're just stopping in here, drop a like on the stream. Let me know what y'all thought on the game. I'm gonna be diving into the comments and giving you my breakdowns as well. So 42 people in here. So if y'all don't mind dropping a like, thank y'all so much, man. I really appreciate everybody hopping in here with me. Joel, what's going on, man? Proud of the Huskers. Go Big Red. It's hard not to be, man. Hard not to be. Again, I'm really not in that much pain after this loss, surprisingly, just because that was really good to see. I really wanted to see these players come out and there's no reason to hang their heads because they were taking a lot of beating this week, and that just shows under the Scott Frost era, they talked a lot about how the outside noise kind of snuck in, right? And it just seems like there's a little bit less of that. I think during the Frost era, we heard a lot about they were just listening to the noise, and that was causing them to really just kind of tighten up. It was causing them to really overthink, or they didn't want to be the ones to make the mistakes. But it seems like Rule has done a much better job under his tenure of keeping that outside noise out and really just kind of making sure the guys within that building focus on each other. Don't focus what us on analysts are saying or as fans are saying. Focus on each other and the guy next to you. And that's what they did today. And like I said, I'm super proud of that team, man. Super proud of the team. Even the offense. I'm super proud of the offense too, man. They went out there and battled, to the final whistle. It's just some of the play calling stuff still needs to be addressed. Can we please not put Heinrich Haarberg on the field anymore to just get negative yards? I think the biggest thing with Haarberg is, I did a video about how I think he should be utilized. And the reason why I did that video is because I wanted him to be used in somewhat of an H-back role. So we use the H-back a ton, Fedoni, Carter and Nelson sometimes, right? But if what a H-back is, it's like a tight end fullback hybrid, just an athletic, type of guy who can block, who can run routes, that type of deal. So when you have a guy like Harburg out there, if you constantly run him in for 1 or 2 plays on a drive, odds are so far he's going to probably be involved in that play a high percentage of the time. So if he comes into the game, most defenses are probably going to be like, okay, let's keep an eye on him because whatever they're doing is probably going to work off of him, at least from what the film has shown thus far. So it's not working. There needs to be some kind of a setup to it. So using him in somewhat of that H-back role and being able to motion him across, use him as a blocker sometimes, and then motion him across, run him out for a pass, like use him in a bunch of different ways. He doesn't have to be out there all the time. Like I said, just do this for a series or something like that. That way it's not like, okay, we're driving all the way down the field. We're getting with inside the 25-yard line. And now all of a sudden we're pulling Heinrich Harburg out to kind of, run a play, run the ball or whatever. And like I said, they're just keying in on it and it's not working. And so I just think they need to get more creative with how they use Heinrich if they insist on getting him out there. I think he should be utilized on the field just because of his talent, skill, and his ability, but I just don't think we're going about it in the right ways. I still think kind of rotating him at that H-back role would be really, really good. And unfortunately, Dylan had a couple of missed passes for TDs. We had chances to win that game. Yes. We did have opportunities to win that game. And I'm not sure what it is about Raiola's touch right now on the deep ball. It's given me a little bit of shades of kind of last year, was just a little bit overthrown, but I don't know if it's a timing thing. I don't know if it's one of those things where it's just the offense, he's feeling the pressure of the offense and maybe he's just staying a little tight and not sticking to his fundamentals, just letting that ball rip. He could be just gripping it a little extra. It's one of those things where he's a true freshman in a situation like this. And, it's hard to say where that's coming from. I mean, mechanically, Raiola tends to be a little awkward. So, mechanically, you don't see too many hitches in his game. And what he does is a little bit unorthodox as is. But yes, we did miss opportunities for sure to win that game. So all these screen passes remind me of the Scott Frost offense, all backwards. I think more the timing of the screen passes is the big one for me. Again, we get down into the red zone on that side of the field and we run like 3 consecutive screen passes or 3 consecutive lateral plays. Again, none of them were, and I get maybe going to it sometimes, right? To really just kind of move that, spread that defense out a little bit. But when you go to it play after play after play, and you're not blocking it, I don't understand. You're not going to trick them by running the same play over and over. Are you expecting this time the blocking to set up? Are you expecting this time to go different? Like there's opportunities where when we need to be moving the ball forward, when we have a shorter field, we're still throwing it laterally. And if you're going to sit here and talk to us on press conference and say perimeter blocking is poor, we'll stop throwing to the perimeter in the situations where we need to get yards the most. They're going to use one big man from defense on offense. Why not use Robinson and Nash to push the ball over the end zone instead, like you said, trying to jump over? That was my thing. I was just wondering how that formation was when they came out with that formation. I was wondering if they were going to use him as a push or just I wasn't sure how that was going to work. But yeah, that was my confusion on it. I was expecting there to just be some big push at the line to really just move them backwards and just kind of get in there and knife your way through. And that would have been ideal, right? Just get in there and be able to get low and find a crease in there. I mean, you got to go 1 inch. And if you're jumping the ball, you have a hard time extending it, right? But when you're down in that pile, right, you're just sitting there and you're literally just going low as you can and just trying to drive through there, knife through there. And it makes it a lot easier. Whether you're going over the top, it's real dangerous. And then, like I said, you lose all of your push as soon as you leave the ground. Your push is gone. And then you're at the mercy of hoping your line gets the push forward and they don't meet you at the top. So going through, and I'll also pull up some of the other Big Ten scores too, and we can run through those as well just to see what everything's doing here. So I got the stats over here. So let me run through these. All right. So one of the things that I did want to point out right here is Nebraska leads in all these categories in this game. Third down efficiency, 5 for 16, 1 for 10 for Ohio State. 273 yards for Nebraska, 285 for Ohio State. 152 passing to 221. 121 rushing to 64, 7 penalties for 62 yards. So Nebraska wins time of possession. They tie the turnover margin, lose the penalties, have more rushing yards, more yards per rush. They have less yards per pass, less passing yards, about 8 less total yards, and lower in fourth down efficiency. Now, if you would have read me that box score before, you see all the elements of a win there. 35 minutes of possession to 24 minutes of possession. Okay. And so let me see. Let me move us over here so I'm not looking to the side for y'all. So 18 first downs to 11 first downs. Like 11 first downs, 5 for 10 on third down. That is exceptional after last week. Dylan Morella, 21 for 32, 152 yards, no touchdowns in that pick. Opportunity for 2 touchdowns naturally. Will Howard, 13 for 16. Pretty efficient when he was able to get the ball off, but pressure was in his face all game. 13 for 16, 221 yards, 3 touchdowns, and that 1 pick. Looking at the rushing, Dowdle had a pretty good game, 14 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Raiola, 9 carries for 31 yards with a 38-yard long. And I saw our sack adjusted yards per rush somewhere in that game. And our sack adjusted yards per rush, I believe, brought us up to over pretty well over 4 yards per carry, if I'm not mistaken. So Emmett Johnson, 8 carries for 30 yards. Pretty good game for him all around. Jalen Lloyd, 1 carry, 4 yards. Fedoni, like I said, he was battling this game. 4 receptions, 55 yards. Corey Barney, 7 receptions for 49. Banks, 2 for 31. Nair, 2 for 15. And then going back to the defense, Deshaun Singleton, 6 solo tackles, was all over the field. Jamari Butler, listen to the stat line: 5 total tackles, 4 solos, 1 sack, 3 TFLs. Isaac Gifford, 4 totals, 1 solo, no TFLs. MJ Sherman had a great stat line too: 3 totals, 3 solos, 1 sack, 2 touchdowns. I mean, two touchdowns, 2 TFLs. So overall, pretty good. Bushini, 6 punts for 245. Did have 1 bad punt, had a 52-yard punt. John Hull, though, 54-yard long, 3 for 3. What a game by him. And hopefully that is one positive sign going forward that hopefully will ensure that Nebraska can almost maybe even roll out a little bit of a different offensive system, because at a certain point, you have to think defenses are playing us to field goals, right? You have to think that they're playing us to field goals because that's what they want to do is to try to force us to try to take the 3, because we can't do it. So now at least this gives them something to think about. Like, okay, this team can kick a field goal. Now we're going to have to play. I guess that is a strategy teams can use. If you can't make a field goal, if you can't execute your field goal process, they'll just keep everything in front of you. Make sure they don't you don't beat them over the top. So, all right, let me slide back over here. I'm going to run through some of these Big Ten scores for y'all real quick, just a heads up. Oregon's up 14-0 on Illinois. We got, Indiana ended up winning their game. I believe they had the backup quarterback, and as well, Curtis Rourke was out this week. So Illinois down 14-0 to Oregon. Oregon just scored. Indiana 31-17 beat Washington. My poor Navy. They got beat, man. I'm a Navy veteran, so I got to root for the Navy in the second, but they got their doors blown off by Notre Dame. Can't give the D a total pass, though. The offense finally broke through and took the lead, and the defense immediately let OSU walk down pretty easy and take it back. Yeah, but part of me there is like, the defense was in certain situations, right? Because, yeah, they're definitely not getting a free pass. But I think the biggest thing that we have to do is think about it this way, because, yes, while they did give that up, I mean, they held the dam so long. They're bound to give it up eventually. I think the biggest thing is because if it wouldn't have mattered if the offense could have just done something and just not been anemic and took care of business on one of those drives, one more of those drives, and it doesn't matter. But yeah, like the Colorado game last year. You look at the Colorado game last year at altitude. They were just on the field. And while we did win the time of possession today, it's just one of those things where it's just like I still find it hard to fault the defense for that. But yeah, they did march down pretty quickly and score there. You are right. Need more resistance for sure. I think every 1st and 10 Nebraska ran the ball up the middle very predictably. That's the variation of run I'm talking about. Like what Ohio State does is they sit there and their run concepts are just, they'll run out of the pistol, right? They'll run out of the shotgun pistol. They'll run out of 2 back sets. They'll run, like I said, trips. They'll run bunch. Everything that they're doing is trying to manipulate the numbers and get you out of the box. When Nebraska's running, it just seems like, okay, we feel like we need to run here, right? Like 1st and 10, let's try to establish the run. Let's just run it right here up the middle, right? There doesn't seem to be any variation, and there needs to be more motions. We need to utilize motions more because when we do, they work. You look at the Purdue game on that first drive of the Purdue game, when Nebraska was just moving the ball down the field before we ended up throwing 3 deep passes consecutively. Everything was working off of motion. We were getting guys coming across the formation. We get another guy coming behind the formation. And then you had almost a triple option type of play there, right? And then that causes confusion with the eyes of the defense. We're not challenging the eyes of the defenses like they are to us. Right now, our eyes are being challenged. Theirs aren't. And that's what I'm not understanding, because right now we're sitting ducks, right? Maybe if our perimeter receivers are put in better situations and those screens are better set up, well, maybe they can get to their blocks a little better. Maybe then the defense isn't engaging downhill as quickly as they are right now. Let's try to find a way to set our personnel up for success as well. But yes, I think it's very predictable. It's like, do we feel like we should run here? Yes. Okay, let's just go run up the middle. Yeah. Wonder how many of your children fail because we judge so harshly those that are in growing periods of life. We are all on different levels, just figuring out what we don't want to be. That's right. That's right. I'm trying to making sure I didn't respond to anything more there. Appreciate you dropping in here, Brasco. Appreciate you. I'm sure I speak for everyone on here, and thank you for your service. Hey, Wade, much appreciated, man. Thank you so much. And I appreciate all y'all for stopping in here, tuning in with me as we run through this. And okay, let me go ahead and slide over a little bit here. 1 second. Sorry. All right. So let me pull this back up. My bad, y'all. Like, I hit live on this stream before I was even ready, but whatever. We're just going to roll with it. Okay. All right. So let's look at I want to look at the scoring summary real quick. And okay, so the first quarter, okay, the Carnell Tate 40-yard pass from Will Howard. That was after the 3rd and 9 pass interference call. Okay, the John Hull 39-yard field goal comes in. Jeremiah Smith 60-yard pass. That's the one I'm talking about. That was on the same exact route that I think that Indiana route was last week. And if I could pull that up, man, I don't have the film up readily available, but it's that same little route that they ran that week. Okay, moving down, John Hull with a 54-yarder before the half. Now, that was the situation right there where we had the missed spot. Now, that one right there to me is that was a bad one, just because the time that came off the clock, but having the ability to get in there, at least John Hill to make that 54-yard field goal to stop the bleeding was excellent. But that spot was horrible. I don't know how you missed that spot. And again, we got points out of it, but man, some of those were terrible. And then John Hull 47-yard field goal, and it seems like he was just drilling them with confidence. Dante Dowdle comes in for that 1-yard run, and then Quinshon Judkins has that 9-yard pass from Will Howard, where they end up with a matchup of Mekhi Gabear on Quinshon Judkins, which I didn't really necessarily like, but yeah, it's one of those things. They got the matchup they wanted, and that's what they're going to do well, right? That's what they're going to do well. But I think the biggest thing, Indiana last week, Nebraska didn't stop the run. Going into the Indiana game last week, I said Nebraska needed to stop the run, and immediately Indiana probably came out that first drive, had more rushing yards than Ohio State did all game today. Okay. Another thing that I do want to say too is our man coverage against this Ohio State team and how we held up against their athletes on this offensive side of the ball. That's only going to make this defense better in the coming weeks, because I still hold firm that offensively Ohio State is, if not the most talented, one of the most talented teams in the country. And so, but regardless, I think this is just a big confidence boost. But yeah, coming off of last week, they didn't stop the run against Indiana. They came out early today and they stopped the run, and look what happened. That's going to be the key to success. And Marcus Satterfield's just finding out you need to run the ball in the Big Ten to have success. Well, stop the run to have success as well. And that's what Nebraska was able to do today. So